Welcome back to Rochester Living with Mark Siwiec and Corey James Moran, brought to you by Elysian Homes by Mark Siwiec and Associates. This is episode 180. I'm Corey. That's Mark. How are you today?
That's different.
Yeah, I switched it up.
Yeah, you did. I like that. Is this new?
Yeah, I don't know. Just feeling it out. What'd you think?
It was surprising. Yeah.
Okay, well, there we go. I got to keep you on your toes. Okay.
How's the family? Is everybody healthy?
Let's see. Right now, yes, actually, shockingly.
Good.
It's
Okay.
amazing. My wife survived the flu.
Good to hear.
And we'll have at least 3 or 4 days before someone gets sick again.
Inevitably, yeah.
How about you? What's new in your world? Work nonstop.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the arrival of spring.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're
Like-
only
like
about 5 weeks away.
Market-wise or actual spring?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I'm waiting for more activity. I get a little antsy this time of year. I'm ready. But also, I'm kind of done with the gray skies at this point.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, ready to jump into it? We have an amazing guest we have to talk to.
Amazing.
It's the greatest guest we've ever had. Am I laying it on extra thick because she's my mother-in-law? Sure. But also, I don't think it's not an accurate statement. But
No, it's pretty accurate. I mean, we've had some great guests.
we've been crushing
but
it.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
crushing
yeah.
it. But really excited for this one. But let's jump into our market report here before we get to her. Less listings.
Come on.
334 last
Right.
week. Monroe County. We're at 324 right now. 6 county regions, 602 down to 587. We're going the wrong direction.
This is unprecedented.
This isn't our fault. We're listing a lot of properties.
Well, we are listing a lot of properties, but then they just continue to be amazed. All right, so 324, did you say?
Yeah.
324. All right, so let's take out of that mix the 200 or so properties that are priced below $200,000.
Yep.
They're more or less in distressed neighborhoods. They're just always sitting around. That leaves about 124 properties on the market for sale. You pull out of that probably what, 25, 30, 50 properties that are new builds?
Yep.
Let's call it 25.
Sure, fair.
There are 100 properties available for sale
Let me tell you a story.
in the 20 municipality region of Monroe County. That's 5 properties per. I think I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
I have a client
Yep.
who I got a sale this week on the board. Yay. But it was an interesting one. So they only moved a year ago. It was
Okay.
kind of a difficult situation, some health issues. They need to go back to the West Coast.
Okay.
We tried to put it on the market in October, and fully well knowing we'll see how it goes. If we get the number we want, great. If not, we'll punt until spring. We put it on the market last week. We had double the activity of what happened in October, and we ended up with $35,000 higher than the highest offer we had back in October, which they did not accept. Same house. Everything's the same.
That's insane. So Zillow, we top. I just read another report this morning. Zillow, we top their heat index once again. Anything above 75 is a sellers. Sellers are controlling the market. It's a seller's
Are
market.
we 500?
So we're number 2 comes in at 120. Heat index 75 or above, it's a seller's market.
Yep.
Number 2 comes in at 120. We're at 146.
Wasn't that far off? Okay. It's wild.
That's insane.
I mean, all
it's
that
not
stuff-
even as though we're even close to the next most competitive market. It's just nuts.
And all the stuff you're listing, same deal. It's going crazy over.
It really is. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think people are waiting on the thaw? Is that it? I mean,
There is definitely a part of me that is. It was a colder January than we've grown accustomed to these past few years.
we've been coddled, though, in all honesty, for the past 4 years. Let's be real.
Yeah, and it's a little grayer. I do think that people are going to come out of the woodwork. I mean, how much longer can mom and dad, husband and wife who bought 5 years ago and now have 3 kids, how much longer can they reside in that 3-bedroom ranch that they purchased for it's at 1,600 square feet?
Sure.
Conversely, how much longer can mom and dad who are living in the 4,800 square foot property, the 3 kids have gone off to college, how much longer do they really want to live in that property, pay the taxes, pay the insurance, and suffer the liability?
Well, I think you mentioned it in your latest blog, which is out now, right?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Where you talk about how eventually convenience and just comfortability is going to outweigh the financial aspect of
right,
this.
exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
eventually it has to, right?
Yeah.
Just for the reasons that you described.
Well,
So,
why don't
but
we
I
talk
get
a
it,
little
I
bit
guess.
Why don't we talk about mortgage rates? Because I think that ties also into the blog a little bit.
Okay, so really quick, just because I don't want to get David Dollinger upset with us.
There we go.
Under contract and pending properties, that's pretty stagnant actually. So Monroe County was 636 last week. We're at 634 right now. 6 County region 988 last week. We're at 985 right now. So right about the same. Mortgage rates, yeah. So I'm gonna give the numbers. And then I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee, and you can chat about tariffs for a hot second. 30-year right now, 7.05. That is just shy from 7.05 last week. So it's sticking around right now.
Yeah.
Kind of the same.
Yep.
15-year, 6.45. That's down from 6.49.
Okay.
I'll turn the table to you.
I literally, this is probably the most time that I've spent 750 words. It took me practically 8 hours this weekend because there was so much information. And as I'm writing the blog, in real time, everything's changing. So when I submitted to the Rochester Business Journal, I literally had to speak to Ben, the publisher, and say, do you need me to amend this because I submitted it 24 hours ago? So anyway, one of the reasons that we have the problem, the housing crisis in the United States has to do, in part, it's due to the fact that we don't have enough new build going on. So we needed last year 4.36 new homes built. We had fewer than 4.36 million new homes built. We had fewer than 1.5 million. So we were shy 3 million new builds last year. Mm-hmm. That's bad in and of itself. You couple that with what's playing out currently with the trade wars. And again, we're recording on Wednesday. This is going to change.
It'll change tomorrow.
It really will. But fully 25% of all of the building material that we need to build real estate here in the United States comes from Mexico and Canada.
Perfect.
30% of all the soft wood that is needed, a little bit more than 30%, comes from Canada. Soft wood is necessary for flooring. It's necessary for roof trussing. It's necessary for basic structure. For the moment, Mexico has blinked. Mexico is sending 10,000 troops to enforce the border. Whether or not they're actually going to enforce the border or not, who knows? But there has now been a reprieve of 30 days for any new tariffs to be imposed on Mexico. That's great. Canada also, they've blinked. But what is it that we are? So at the moment, fine. It looks fine. It looks as though we're not going to see any increase in these tariffs. But what happens in 30 days? And this is a presidency and an administration in which, in real time, you wake up and all of a sudden we want to annex Gaza, which was today's news story. Or we want to take over Greenland or Panama or impose tariffs on
the Gulf of America.
Yes, exactly. Now, none of this is from my point of view, political. This is just
factual.
This is just factual. This is just what's playing out in the newspaper in real time as we're speaking. So, what happens in 30 days, and what is it in particular that we're trying to extract from Canada? They're saying that we need to enforce increase security along the border to prevent the infiltration of fentanyl into the United States from Canada. 4% of all fentanyl entering the United States is coming in from Canada. So it's really
pretty minuscule. Yeah.
So what is it that we're really trying to extract? What concessions are we trying to extract from Canada? So
statehood. That's what I heard. Statehood.
so hats off to the president. I really mean this. Hats off to the president that at least for the moment he caused Mexico to blink and he extracted from them a promise of 10,000 troops along the border. And congratulations that when he was proposing tariffs be imposed on Colombia last week, they blinked. They did then decide to allow the planes to land that contained the illegal aliens who had emigrated into the United States from Colombia. But again, we don't know where this is headed, and again, we don't know what it is that he's trying to extract from Canada. So ultimately, and I'll just conclude with this: it looks a little tenuous. I'm concerned that we are going to see tariffs imposed, and if not strictly on Canada and Mexico, certainly we got 10% tariffs on Canada. and what other countries are next. And he's just looking for those next countries. This is definitely viewed as we've been saying since October, when it became increasingly obvious that Donald Trump was going to be the next president. These are inflationary tactics on his part. And as inflation starts to rise over the course of the next 6 months, let's say, 30-year bond is going to increase, and that will cause 30-year mortgage rates. So in part, if you're thinking of buying, now is the time to do so.
Sure, yeah.
If you're thinking of selling, now is the time to do so.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because all last year, all we talked about was in a presidential year, there's so much uncertainty, right? And now here we are.
Point. Yes, yeah.
Here we are. All right, we're in the year where there's supposed to be more certainty, and it feels like there's actually more of it, right?
Yes, there is definitely a lot of uncertainty out there right now. So
it seems like, at least from the mortgage rate standpoint, they're just kind of frozen right now, trying to figure out what the hell is going on and what's going to transpire.
Yeah. I think that the bond market in particular had baked in a lot of this uncertainty.
Yeah.
But as the uncertainty meter, if you will, continues to rise, I do think that the bond market is going to probably rise because we just don't know what's happening 3 hours from now, let alone 30 days from now.
And you have to imagine that the economic data is going to, again, be pushed to the forefront of an indicator of what's happening. So, when the next CPI comes out, that's going to be really important stuff. So for now, we wait. Yeah,
and I'm not quite sure whether the CPI is going to, or PCE. I don't think that either of those two metrics are going to indicate in the next 1, 2, 3 months an increase in inflation.
Okay, yeah.
As a result of some of the current president's policies, but I do think that 6 months from now that's going to. But then again, I mean, have you seen eggs?
Yeah, what's the price?
Cost of eggs, like $7 and something cents for a dozen eggs.
Yeah.
And that's due to avian. It's not due to Joe Biden's policies concerning eggs.
That's what I heard. That's what I saw on Facebook.
What's that?
That's what I saw on Facebook.
Exactly. It has to do with avian flu. But that may very well start to cause inflation to tick upwards. So
cool.
We'll see.
All right. Anything else in real estate?
No. Was it succinct enough?
Yeah, I think
was it too long?
Explains it. No.
Okay.
Chef's kiss.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to our guest.
God, you just spent some time with Paulie Guglielmo, didn't you?
I did.
That's
again.
Where the chef's
I saw him
kiss
again.
Yes. That's where the chef's kiss come from.
Real quick story. So he's the president of the Rochester Rotary Club.
Yeah.
I was invited to go to their luncheon yesterday. He puts on a show. I mean, he has entrance music.
Wow.
He said it was not always like that. So it's a little less.
Well, he's got so much time on his hands.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, what? Only 3 businesses and only 2 kids. One's 2 months old.
Yeah.
Let's get to our guest. Very, very excited. I see her every Sunday for family dinner. The board chair of DS+CO, Lauren Dixon. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. I mean, you and Mark have known each other how long now?
A million years.
A million years. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. And we're still friends.
Look at that. Positive. All right.
I mean, we're actually good friends.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm
actually, sorry to interrupt. That's actually how I know you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
For those who don't know, this is exactly how it is that you came to join us at what is now Elysian Homes.
That's right.
And that's how it is we became friends because Lauren said, would you ever sit down with my son-in-law?
And you're like, I went to his wedding. I have to. That's the rules, right?
I think I met him at his wedding.
That's like some Godfather stuff right there. Exactly. A little bit. But Lauren, let's start from kind of the beginning here. Your original career. We can relate to this, having an original career in broadcasting and then pivoting to a different one. You were a reporter for 13 Wham.
Yes.
What led you to that? And I guess the second part of that question too is, how did that set a basis for what was to come?
Good question. I've always, throughout my childhood, always wanted to be a reporter because I'm a news junkie and I have a lot of questions.
Yes.
I'm very, very curious. And so when discussing this with my school counselor, they were leading me down a path that, I wasn't first comfortable with. Why don't you teach? Why don't you teach English? And I thought, I don't think so. I wanted something a bit more exciting. And so I did a double major, broadcast journalism and 4 languages, because my real end goal was to be an international reporter.
Oh, interesting.
And so in my last year of college, my dad suffered some heart attacks, and I immediately had to go home. So I ended up in Rochester and loved every single minute being on Channel 13. It was a wonderful career.
And you have some stories, certainly, from
Got
that.
some stories.
And how long were you with 13?
Almost 10 years,
Okay, that's a good long time.
both as a reporter and a news anchor with Don Alhart.
Okay.
And then went into PM Magazine with Joel Loy, which was fascinating because we told only good stories, but we traveled the world, and it was unbelievably great. And I met so many people that I would have never had an opportunity to
I
meet.
didn't know you traveled the world as a result of that.
I didn't
With
either.
Henry Kissinger, I spent time with, and all sorts of people. Gloria Swanson, you wouldn't know who Gloria
Gloria
Swanson.
Swanson?
Yes. She didn't like me.
Really?
She really had no use for me. She wouldn't even look me in the eye.
Wow.
Yep. But I got to meet fascinating people, Stephen King, all sorts of people. Yeah.
Wow.
it
Did
was
you go to
fun.
Maine to interview Stephen King? Where did you interview
Yes,
him?
in Maine.
You did? Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I knew we were going to get a lot of great nuggets from this.
Oh, yeah, inevitably.
Okay, so you're doing the reporter thing on 13 Wham. How did you transition from that into this jump into marketing?
Well, you can't work 80 hours a week and be a mom. It just doesn't work. And so I wanted to start my family with your beautiful wife, Courtney. She was my first child, and you just can't do that. So I did a brief stint in advertising sales at a TV station.
I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead here. So you thought that, like, starting your own business was going to cause you to work fewer hours every week?
That's true, but it was at least for myself, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah, that is true,
Yeah.
but it is never fewer hours.
No, you're right about that.
Yeah.
But it made me feel better, I
There you
think.
go.
Anyway,
Well,
and it was on
clearly
my
a good
terms.
move. Yes, it was
on
clearly
my
a good
terms.
move.
And so I did a brief stint there and decided that I wanted to jump into my own business, was scared out of my mind. And my dad, who owned a business at the time, said, all you have to do is two things: hire people smarter than you and motivate and excite them to want to come to work every single day. And he said, you really, and I said, but Dad, I never took a business course. He said, you don't have to. You do what you do and hire a really smart business manager or CFO, whatever. And
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
so wait a minute. So I was challenged by, how do I get business? So I sent 30 letters to 30 CEOs of small, medium, and large companies, and I said, can I have 20 minutes of your time? Believe it or not, they all agreed.
Really?
Every single one
That's
agreed.
fantastic.
But you were a known entity in town because you were a celebrity. Seriously.
Well, no, not a celebrity. But anyway, everyone met with me, and I asked them two questions. What are the top three things that you love about your current advertising agency relationship? And what are the three things that bug the heck out of you? Because I thought if I could understand the things that bug them, maybe those things could be my points of differentiation. And lo and behold, they said the same three things that they didn't care for. My invoices don't match the estimates that I first got. They're always
Fair. I
higher.
can see that being not a
Yeah,
great
that's a
thing.
problem. My agency doesn't care about me.
Wow.
Yeah, and production costs are too high. Well, back then, production costs were about 300%. So I went back, I wrote a white paper, and I sent it to them with our 3 points of differentiation, shared that I was going to start a business. And lo and behold, 3 days later, 2 called me back, Hazelton and Roberts Wesleyan College,
wow.
and asked if I would be their agency of record. And that's how I started my business.
That's
And
not a
what
bad way
was-
to start. My
Well,
God.
and what was so cool was the folks at Hazelton said, do you want more car business? And that was the #1 advertiser at the time on TV. And I said, you betcha. And so
Which
they-
is kind of funny because think about that happening now, where
Oh.
where a client that's in this specific industry is there. If anything, it's the opposite, right? They don't want you to be working with, the competitor.
well, and so he referred us to the largest dealership in Buffalo.
Okay.
Okay.
So I met with that owner about 3 days later, and believe it or not, got their business. And then
Wait, and at this
that-
point in time, you're
it's me, myself, and I. I have no employees.
Well, and that's not true. You have my wife Courtney and
Oh,
my
yes.
brother-in-law Jordan, who
They
were
licked a lot of envelopes and put on a lot of stamps.
Can I share my favorite story?
Yes.
That Courtney always tells. When you first started Lauren Dixon advertising marketing, you would put them in T-shirts, and then you go
Yes.
to the playground.
Yep.
And then just to get some attention, because people would at some point or another see the T-shirt and walk up to you and say, "What's that?" And that's your in to give
My
the pitch.
billboards.
Right? Walking billboards. Well, and then what? The story of your first office was Jordan's closet, where you had the phone. And
Yes.
didn't you answer the phone in a different voice as a secretary to talk to yourself?
Kind of.
I'm giving all the secrets away.
Okay, enough. Zip it.
So I mean, this got legs somewhat quickly, I would say.
Oh, and the Buffalo guy called his best friend in Syracuse, who also owned Burdick Automotive, who is also the largest dealer in Syracuse, and we won their business, and then it kept going to the one in Albany, and then down in the southern tier. And so at the very beginning, we were only automotive. And which then led me to, I have some problems because I need more people.
Sure.
And at that time, how you got employees was you put an ad in the classifieds, right? And so I put an ad in Buffalo, and Mike Schwabel answered the ad.
And who's Mike Schwabel?
He was my first employee and now husband. That wouldn't have gone over so well in these days.
Probably
not.
But then again, if you're a one-woman show, really, who's going to like you? Who's going to
You're
Blow
your
me
own,
in.
you're your own HR. No, who's going to blow you in?
So, all right, so wait, I need to go back. So you've got Hazelton here. You've got Roberts Wesleyan.
Yep.
You've got the automotive company
In Northtown in Buffalo.
Okay. And then Syracuse.
Yes.
And all this takes place within the first 2 weeks, a
Probably
month?
2 months.
Okay, in the first 2 months. All right. How did you? I mean, and then you get Mike.
Yeah.
But like, how were you working 18-hour days? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah. 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would agree with the following statement: more people aren't wildly successful because they just don't realize
How much work?
how much it is. It is grueling.
Well, and our first accountant, his name was Jimmy Cohen. He said to me, do not spend any money the first year on yourself. Don't go to the movies. Don't even buy. Don't buy underwear. Don't do anything. And he said, you know that 94% of all small business fails the first year, and the second year, 92% of those fail. And so he scared the heck right out of me. So I worked. I was always at my desk at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I worked 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I had my first cousin, Robin. She was our nanny, bookkeeper, and took care of the world for me. She was every working woman's wife. Guess what? She still works for us.
Yeah.
41 years later. Isn't that
Incredible.
fabulous?
And
so lucky.
That's a lot of your success also. But let me just go back for a second. When I started in real estate, when I started both as a real estate agent, but also as somebody who's investing in rental property, I drove the same Nissan Sentra for 6 or 7 years. I had the same pair of khakis and blue button-down Oxford. And as I'm buying rental property, I think I had 35, 40 units before I moved out of the one-bedroom, 600-square-foot apartment. Because it's just too, and I remember being so envious of my friends who were driving these beautiful cars, and they had beautiful clothes, and they were going out to dinner all the time, and I just kept saying, put your nose down, just keep focused. And it does pay off. So not only does it require a lot of hours, but it requires also fiscal discipline and the ability to just put off
Absolutely.
that delayed gratification. And it does pay off.
It does.
So
some of the challenges that you faced, some of the biggest ones as it started to build.
My goodness. I had it pretty easy, honestly, because of the automotive success.
Don't see it easy because you set yourself up for that.
Well,
I mean, I think what is the most interesting to me is that you found the things that they all hated. Right. And you found a way to flip that and fix it. So obviously when they see that presentation, they're thinking, yeah, we hate that our agency does this. Of course they're going to give you a chance. Like that flipped it on its head.
Well, I'm very grateful for that. But I guess I would say the biggest challenge right from the onset, I didn't have any investors. And I certainly had just gotten divorced with 2 small kids, 1.5 years and 3. And so I didn't have money to really do much of anything. My father bought me a printer I know, so kind. And I went to the bank to open up my business account with $22.11. And I thought they were going to laugh me out of the bank, but they didn't.
Great.
They allowed me to do that. But I think that might have been the biggest challenge. I think the second challenge was probably it was 10 years in, and everything was going swimmingly. However, March 3rd, 25 years 25 years ago, our roof collapsed of our office building, and we lost everything. I mean, everything, even our popcorn popper, because what the roof didn't smash, the water system just destroyed. Ugh. And we were left with absolutely nothing.
And my recollection is that you had big presentations.
Big presentations.
That were due immediately, like within a day. Because this happened on the weekend, I think?
It happened on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And so we had that weekend to be able to scurry, and we went in the office and tried to get all of the wet pieces of paper that we had already, I mean, it was a mess. So I think that was a big challenge to lead the company and not go out of business and be the head cheerleader. And there were days when some of our team, I think we had probably 25 employees at the time, some of our team, I was afraid we were going to lose them because it was tough. We were working double time just to try to meet deadlines and pitch new business, but satisfy our current clients. So I think that weighed on me heavily for a long time.
There's always going to be adversity.
Right.
Your roof collapsing, though, not the adversity you expect to happen.
No.
But that's business.
Yeah.
It is business.
This past fall, I had my finance manager, embezzling money from me. Like you don't have a contingency plan.
That's a separate podcast.
You were going to say something, Lauren. I'm sorry.
Separate podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, you're going to say something.
I know, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I used the word embezzlement and all of a sudden. But you just, you don't necessarily know or understand what it is that's going to come your way, but you need to know how to, and you can't even engage yourself emotionally when those things, because you don't have time.
And I think that's the biggest thing. You have to ground yourself and
Yes.
take all the emotion out of it and stay calm for all of the people around you, because it was an unnerving experience. But I have to tell you, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it happened. And why I'm glad it happened is that the people who were with me at that time, the vast majority of them are still with me.
That's insane.
And we forged this bond that will never be broken, and I will be forever grateful for. And I know they have my back, and they know I have their back.
Yes.
But it's a really interesting relationship, how something can build so tightly because of something so horribly.
So that kind of leads me to the next thing I wanted to address, and that's culture, which I know is gigantic. Mark, you talk about it all the time for our business, how important that is. You use Lauren and Mike and DS+CO as an example of that great culture.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this to you, but when it is that I've got a problem with my business, or when it is that I'm thinking about culture, I always ask myself two questions. One, what would Danny do? He's got a great company, incredible company, and great culture. And then the next question, what would Lauren do? Those are the two all the time. I ask myself those questions. And you know what? I always come up with the right answer. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very kind.
So building that went into it, obviously from the jump, you knew the importance.
Absolutely. Trust is everything. That is the secret sauce to building a great culture. And anytime someone comes on board and I have my one-on-one with them, I always share with them that it's really important to come in and talk to me, and I will always tell you the absolute truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Even when they don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of ugly in marketing, but there's been some ugly that we've lived through over the last 36 years, and we've shared it with them, because the last thing I would ever want to do is have them have a team member find out something 1 week, 1 month, 1 year later, all the trust that we've built up out the window.
Sure.
And the chances of us getting that back probably slim to none. So we really believe in that. And we have values that we share with our team members. And during interviews, that's how we ask the questions. Like I'll say, what do you do at night and on the weekend? And if their answer is, play video games and I hang out at the mall, not for us.
No.
However, if they say, well, I volunteer at Ronald McDonald or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, I'm like, check. You've got 1 of 5. So that's critically important to us.
Well, and that leads to, just segueing here for a moment, I think one of your other enormous keys to success, you and Mike in DS, is you're known for your philanthropy. I mean, there is not a fundraiser that goes on in town in which you haven't purchased a table, in which you haven't come in as a lead sponsor. There's not a fundraiser in town that you're sharing these events over and over and over.
How many dinners have you hosted that were on gala auction blocks?
Last year.
Right. Number's too big. I'm not really sure.
It's enormous, but that's a huge part of your culture. And I think that people, well, first of all, you have to do it authentically. Because if you're doing this simply because you're trying to derive business, falls flat. But to the core of your being and that of Mike, you are constantly doing this because you really believe that with privilege comes responsibility.
Absolutely. And it's one of our values. Community is one of our values. And it is important to both of us, but it's important to us that our team is also engaged. So for any team member who serves on a board, and they all do, or a committee, we give back to them and we support them, be it a walk, a gala, a whatever, pro bono work, whatever, because we do wholeheartedly believe that we've been very blessed to be able to have a business in Rochester and to enjoy the success we have, and we should give back. I think it's everybody's responsibility to give back what you can, right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it might be 25. I mean, the first fundraiser that I ever went to, when I started attending fundraisers, I think I wrote a check of $100 or something.
Yeah.
You can't afford it, but it's just important to start to give back.
It gets you on your way. I have always been amazed. The United Way campaign is super successful, of course, and the Wegmans team, 93% of all of their team members give. 93%. Now, the vast majority of their team members are between the ages of 14 and 18.
That's wild.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
But again, that goes back to the issue of culture.
Yep.
The culture that Danny and Colleen and everybody have created, the culture that you've created, important stuff.
I mean, amazing, and it creates that bedrock too. As the younger folks see the older folks in the company
Right.
and what they do leading by example, then it just continues to churn and churn and churn.
Yeah.
Let's shift to marketing here. There's
Okay.
been a few changes since you started.
Oh, just a couple.
What's the biggest one?
Oh, boy. The biggest one certainly is readership and circulation of newspapers. Our media team hardly buys any newspapers at all.
So what you're saying is if you're a real estate agent and you're putting an ad in
wasn't
a
going there.
newspaper, that maybe that's not the best way to expose that listing?
I would say no.
Or to promote yourself as an agent, maybe you don't want to be taking out the full page ad in the Saturday supplement to the Democrat and Chronicle.
Who would do that?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It has changed dramatically. And even with new radio and television, they have gone down significantly too because there's just simply more options.
Right.
And the big win right now is podcasts. They are growing and growing and growing. Yes. 3 million podcast listeners every single month. I mean, Joe Rogan has 3 billion listeners every single month.
People thought it was crazy when Spotify gave him as much money as they did.
It was $100 million.
Seems like maybe not a bad investment.
Not a bad
now.
investment
They might have
at
known
all.
they were doing, yeah.
And then, is it Call Her Daddy?
Yeah.
I mean, unlike this past presidential election,
Yes.
Donald Trump, he knows media and he knows how to garner a headline. Joe Biden, God love him. I mean, was he? I mean, I can't think of actually a podcast that he might have been on. And everybody looks back at this past year as the campaign that was won in large part as a result of podcasts.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting when you think about podcasts, right? Because they kind of mirror what's going on culturally, where you create this kind of echo chamber if you're not careful about what you believe in. You surround yourself with everyone that's going to tell you the things that you believe in, right? And I think this is really dangerous, and it scares the hell out of me, but it's what's happening. With a podcast, typically, you're going to find one that aligns with what you think.
Right. Yep.
And it's feeding right into it.
Yeah.
I mean, the days of, even just the news being just factual and delivering what's out there, those days for the most part
are over.
Gone, right? Everything's got a slant, and it's appeasing to a certain consumer base, and at the end of the day, it's ad dollars, really, what it comes down to.
Exactly.
But it's interesting with podcasts because that's really, I think, the genesis of why it's exploded in the way that it has.
Oh, yeah, and there's a podcast for those who love
Anything.
cats and those who love chocolate,
Yep.
those who love exactly, murder mysteries. So but you have really, you've seen it all. I mean, and it's the equivalent of the Model T.
Hey, I'm not that old.
Started, you're not that old.
Come on, Mark, jeez.
But then all of a sudden, with the passing of enough time, and this is where it was headed, then all of a sudden you're sending rockets to the moon. And not that you've been in business that long, but the changes are that enormous because you were when you were working with these auto companies, these auto dealerships.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was all analog, and it was probably slide rulers and pencils and
it was crazy.
Yeah.
But the one constant thing that I will say is all about storytelling, and the storytelling today is so much better and more rich than it was back then. Back then in the news days, I had to tell both sides of the story. Well, today you don't need to do that, right?
Yeah.
Now what we're doing is really sharing with a very specific audience, some really meaty information. And one of the things that I read recently is that if you listen to a podcast, for an example, it reduces your stress, it reduces your anxiety, and it's actually good for you.
Oh, there you go.
How about that? Who knew it was healthy?
But storytelling is important. I mean, look at YouTube creators.
Right.
I do these videos about these properties that are coming on the market for sale, or something that's going on locally. This podcast, Beyonce and Taylor Swift, they're enormous in large part because they're storytellers.
Yes,
Sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
Storytelling is just so important. Being able to craft that message. Paulie, who we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, he's a storyteller.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
But only 20% of podcasters work every
of
single
course.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, so the success rate isn't so great. And the great ones are great storytellers with fabulous content that people can relate to.
Yep.
And the hosts have to have this likability thing.
Sure.
That's the number one thing, and rich content. And not everybody can do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that likability thing, but that does go back. I mean, look at Doug and Ginny, and they did so well for all those years because they were likable in and of themselves. But then I don't know who's Katie Couric paired with. I mean, I don't even know.
Not sure.
Oh,
Whoever her male co-host was. I mean, there was a dynamic that existed between the two of them. So anyway, so you started out in this analog world, and then it just kept changing and changing and changing. I think you've done a really great job of continually just pivoting and focusing on video and focusing on storytelling and focusing on podcasts and understanding these metrics. I mean, you've done a great job because evolve or perish, right?
well, and hire people much smarter than you.
Exactly.
It's the secret sauce right there.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of things that I still am not in the know about, but the people who we've hired are definitely in the know, and they're very, very innovative and keep us on the edge, which is exactly what
Good for you.
every company, no matter if you're in the advertising world or real estate world, you've got to be one step ahead at all times.
You're constantly trying to figure out not what is the competition going to be doing 3 or 6 months from now, what is the competition going to be doing 3 years from now? What are they doing in New York and LA that we haven't yet started to do here in Rochester? Absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's a perfect seg to the biggest change happening now, and we can't go a podcast without talking about it, AI.
Oh,
And how to utilize it and the dangers.
yeah, there are a lot of dangers.
Yes.
In every single department within my company, we have a different AI policy because what we can do in my business office is fabulous. When we want to write a contract, we put it into AI instead of sending it to our attorney. Do you know how much money we save?
I bet, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And then in our creative department, that's what keeps me up at night because their policy is very different. And no agency has gone to court over the use of creative, who owns what, right? And that's a slippery slope, and I don't think we're going to know that for a while.
Sure.
So I have very respectfully asked them to temper their enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to me, and I know that within this next year, we're going to see changes like we have never seen before. So buckle up, because
Perfect.
it's all going to be very different.
I completely agree. And with China releasing DeepSeek 2 weeks
Yes,
ago,
I know.
and if we are able to, those of us who use AI, if we're able to do it more cheaply and as inexpensively as they're purporting to be able to, that is everything we've seen up till now.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, just 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, they're saying that within 6 years, we're going to have AGI, artificial general intelligence, computers that can reason to the same degree that we as human beings can. 6 years from now,
Yeah.
Skynet.
Skynet. Absolutely.
The thing that's interesting from the creative angle of it, right? And I think you are correct in maybe tempering some of the expectations. You know, you talk about storytelling, right? There's a very human element to that. And I think it could be utilized for idea generation and brainstorming. But I think at the end of the day, what we can't get into is just having it dictate
No.
what is said, right?
No, and I use it if I'm going to write a recommendation for someone. I'll get the bare bones,
Yep.
and then I'll go in and put it in my own voice.
Sure.
But it's only going to get better and better and better, you know? But will it ever be what I think will be suitable? I can't see it.
Sure.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, until it takes us over and then we're
Yeah.
all just in pods and they're just sucking the life off of us.
And I would disagree with you, Lauren. I do think that it's just going to become more and more and more lifelike.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the lawyers and how it is that you're actually able to create these contracts without the use of lawyers. It all comes back down to service, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know, a couple of years ago, I've mentioned that I had a prospective tenant who sued me because we wouldn't allow her pet cat to join her. Well,
I thought it was an aardvark.
So after 3 days, we rented the apartment to somebody else. She sued us because we didn't. It turns out that she was saying that she had an emotional support animal. She never told us that it was an emotional support animal. She told us it was a cat. So all of a sudden, I hire a law firm locally to take care of this. 6 months later, the state calls me like, you haven't responded to anything that we've asked of you. Why not? The law firm that I hired that I'd been paying thousands of dollars to had just dropped the ball. I fired them. I went ahead, fired up ChatGPT, wrote my response, and I won. That's
There you
Wow.
go.
Yeah.
so it's got to come down to service because we can all at this point in time just fire up ChatGPT. But we do need hand holding, and our jobs will be eliminated. Your job's going to be eliminated unless we're coupling humanity with
Absolutely.
GPU. Yeah,
100%. Anything else you wanted to ask about, Mark? I've got one last question, but I'll save it.
you go right ahead.
Okay. Advice for those that want to be entrepreneurs. The biggest thing as they start, aside from buckle up because it's going to be rocky in the beginning, and your roof might fall apart.
I guess I would say to talk to other people in the same business and really determine what their own point of differentiation is. That's key. You don't want to have a business just like everybody else's just because you love that industry and are so passionate. You really need to figure out what a point of differentiation is so you can sell it. I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then just be prepared to work like a dog for 2 to 3 years because that's what it's going to take to be successful.
And you've got to love it, right? I mean, you can't, it's not a job. It's going to be your life.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs start a business in something that they're really they love, but they don't have the business brain behind it. And so I guess good business counsel as well, because it does take more than just passion of the industry or passion of the thing. You really have to have a sound business plan along with it.
Fantastic. I know you've got an appointment we don't want to get in the way of because it's very important. It's Lauren's favorite thing she gets to do.
But today's actually kind of boring. Yeah.
Well, there's only one
Yeah.
case. Can't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, no, I know that. No, I wasn't asking to do that. But yeah, it's going to be a fairly light day, I understand. Yeah. So Duffy sits on this same, as the Attorney Grievance Committee. So yeah,
for
So,
sure.
anyway.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We
Yes.
appreciate it. I mean,
Well, thank you for having me.
phenomenal
It's a
story.
lot of fun.
We learned things, which is crazy because Mark's known you forever and known you for quite some time now. So really, really fun. But we'll let you go before we have a couple things to get to here about Rochester. All right, let's turn to Rochester. What's going on here? A new restaurant opened.
I can't
You were
wait.
just complaining about how there are not enough new restaurants, and poof, like magic.
This place looks really amazing. Bonnie and Clyde
In Fairport,
the Village
right?
of Fairport.
Yeah.
The Village of Fairport, which just continues to impress and amaze with the number of restaurants, the innovative nature of these restaurants. I mean, unfortunately, downtown Rochester, increasingly just looks like Beirut back in 1980s. But man, those companies and restaurants that should be live and active in downtown Rochester, they're all in Fairport. It's awesome.
I mean, listen, the college kids are treating Fairport as the new Park Ave.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
now it's kind of interesting. They kind of led the charge on that, and now everyone else is kind of following suit. To a degree.
Yeah,
I got to try
exactly.
Rustic Taco last week, by the way, which is in Fairport.
I don't know it.
New-ish, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know. I had heard about it for I don't know. I had a couple tours in Fairport, and some people there were telling me, "You got to try it," and it was phenomenal, right on the main drag there.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know. They like deep fry the taco shell.
Oh, that's good because there aren't enough calories in a taco itself. Yeah.
Listen, I'm there for enjoyment, okay? Not for judgment.
No judgment.
So Bonnie and Clyde. So this is the same owners as the Cub Room in Rochester.
Yes,
actually.
yeah, which is
so
closing. Yeah.
Kind of speaks to the point you were just
Yes,
literally
exactly.
making.
Yeah. Did you enjoy Cover Room?
I went once, I believe. It's tough just because I'm in Canandaigua, so I'm so
You're right. Yeah.
removed from that at this point. Every single time we have a date night, my wife's like, "Where do you want to go?" And then I'll start to list off places, and then she'll go, "Not Rochester. How about Canandaigua?" So I was like, "All right, cool. The same 6 choices."
Yeah, right.
Sounds great.
Exactly.
But Jeremy from our team, from our brokerage,
Yeah.
said he went to the opening and said it was phenomenal for Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah. I saw that on Facebook. Little bit of envy on my part. I was like, oh, that looks like a lot of fun.
You're supposed to be the one going to the restaurants first.
I'm supposed to be, but the problem is that I have no relation to Fairport.
Sure, yeah.
Those who live in Fairport, they're on the cutting edge of everything that is going on in terms of culinary Rochester at this point in time. So I think that the solution is they just need to put the house on the market for sale, move into Fairport, and find myself on the cutting edge once again.
Listen, you haven't bought a house in a year.
Yeah, exactly. But I was in my old house for 25 years.
Yeah,
So there was that.
That's true. I mean, you even it out. You're averaging, right?
Yes, I am.
Right?
I am.
You're bringing it back to the 7-year average that people
You got
used
it.
to have.
You got it, mister. Yeah.
What else is going on in Rochester? The school bus driver in Naples. That's great. Just a school bus driver, has all the lives of our children on their hands, immense responsibility for a job that I would say people generally get crapped on for. I mean, you've got literally 60 screaming kids in the bus. But I would say this firing, definitely valid.
Oh, did they fire the bus driver?
I have got to imagine you can't bring a loaded gun onto a bus full of children.
It wasn't a gun. It was, I think, a rifle.
That's a gun. That's the same thing.
Oh, well, all right. I mean, a gun, I think of a little thing you hold in your hand. Like, this is a rifle with shells and
Not ideal. There'd be very strongly written worded letters to the district from my wife if that happened on my child's bus. Not that ever would, because Mr. Aaron's phenomenal.
Oh, there we go. That was a crazy story. Really crazy.
You think that's crazy?
What? What do you got?
One.
What do you got for us?
There's a Greece resident who is suing the town for allegedly tracking him.
What?
Listen to this.
Greece is crazy.
This gentleman's name is Ryan Murphy. And oddly enough,
Not the
No.
Netflix producer.
no, not American Horror Story, Ryan
okay,
Murphy,
great,
different
okay, great,
Ryan
okay,
Murphy,
great.
I assume, anyways.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, he took issue with his home assessment increase in Greece, New York.
Okay.
He obviously did not reach out to us to chat about what it means when you get reassessed, because I think he might have gone a little overboard with this. But anywho, he claimed that town leaders receive preferential treatment in their reassessments that he did not receive in his reassessment, and he took his concerns online.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So apparently this got some legs. I did not see the post myself, but he is claiming that town officials sent him a letter stating the process was fair and accused him of harassment. Since that time, here's what he is alleging, and I really want to stress the alleging.
Okay.
He has noticed frequent police patrols near his home. He says security cameras have captured officers shining floodlights on his house and stopping outside.
What is it? What is it with the Greece Police Department? I mean, ever since Todd Baxter left the Greece, like, who was the fool who wasn't it the chief of police or something? Who was like, he was so loaded, he was so trashed.
Yeah. He was driving on 3 wheels. Yeah,
He was driving on 3, like the rubber was like blown off the tires. He was just like riding
just
on
sparks
the rims, like,
flying. Yeah,
like, insane.
Goes on to say neighbors reported police inquiries about him. Again,
Wow.
this all seems a tad extreme in response to a Facebook post, but okay, this is what he's saying. He's alleging that there's vehicle tracking allegations. He says,
Well, this isn't the first time because they've put trackers on other cars.
really?
Yes, yeah.
You're on this guy's side, I can tell.
Yeah, I am. You're not?
It just sounds
Wait,
a
you're
little wild.
you're supporting Gestapo-like tactics.
I'm just saying these are alleged things that are happening, and there's not necessarily
Okay, so
proof
let's
of
take
so.
out the word alleged. Let's just for a moment
If
suppose
they
that
are,
this is...
of
yes.
course, if they are, then it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't do that.
But come on, neighbors are backing this guy up. What?
He says.
Well, all right, okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm a little skeptical. What can I say?
Okay, all right.
So anyway, I mean, he's moving forward with this lawsuit, so I guess.
Well, there you go.
It's alleged until proven by his attorney.
Listen, if he's dropping money on hiring an attorney to represent him in court,
Yeah, you think it's pretty serious?
yeah.
I want to see this Facebook post. It had to be very strongly worded.
I can't wait to see this dumpster fire take hold.
He could have also just, I don't know, like went to the grievance committee and said, "Hey, can you lower it?"
Yeah.
You got to know. You could have contacted any real estate agent.
Maybe he did.
Perhaps. I don't know.
Maybe he did, Corey.
Maybe he didn't.
I'm just
Maybe
saying.
he didn't. So if this happens to you, you can fight these things, and
Yeah.
potentially you can get them down. We received a 22% increase in our assessment 2.5 years ago. Fought it down to 17%.
There you go.
Lauren got hers down to 13%. I'm going to write a strongly worded Facebook post about this immediately. Anything else happening in Rochester right now? So again, we're a deep freeze.
We're in deep freeze, man. Yeah. We're definitely.
Although I did have a tour right before we started recording here. A gentleman's a candidate for a position in the area, and he's from Nashville right now. That's where he's living.
Oh,
and
boy.
He said it's not as cold as I expected.
Okay. Well, there we go.
So could be worse.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. Yeah.
Pop culture wise, what's going on? I know the Grammys happened. Really, all I know about it is that Jaden Smith wore a house on his head, and a lot of realtors are making memes about it. That's pretty much all I got.
I didn't see that.
Really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't see that people were making memes about it. I mean, I saw the house. I was like, what the hell's that about? Well, actually, did you see Kanye and his girlfriend?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
She is. I mean, they are insane.
That's just public nudity, Mark. There's really nothing else to say.
She was wearing something. I mean, it was
Yep.
saran wrap, but
I don't think it was. I don't even know what that material is.
They are insane.
Uh-huh.
And you've seen photos through the years of like the dinner parties they host. Yeah.
This was the most. I mean, again, this was just. She was just nude. This was just.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
I don't know if it was true. I did see a photo. There was some kid that was there. It's like peering around the corner.
Oh, that must have been doctored or something because yeah.
Wouldn't be shocked either way.
But the Grammys were really interesting. I mean,
Were they? Sorry,
oh, you know what? No, you're right.
I was forced to watch it based on my previous career. Maybe that's why.
You do know that you always refer to it as your previous career. Like, it's always nebulous. Like I think if you speak About what it is that you did? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, PTSD? I don't know.
Could
maybe.
be, possibly.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There were a couple of standout performances. I really, frankly, I didn't pay much attention. My life and my listening habits have been so transformed over the course of the past year.
And those shows are so boring.
So I mean, there's not a lot of great music being put out. I love podcasts. I love audiobooks. But there were a couple of great performances. Benson Boone. Like that guy, like I want to go and see him in concert.
Okay.
Because I'm like, who knew that he's a great songwriter and a great has a great voice. He's also an acrobat. Like he just jumped on the top of a piano, did this flip, landed, like hit a high note. I was
Is Pink gonna be mad about this?
Well, she's still got her aerial acrobatics. Yeah. I didn't see any chords or And then the other was what is her name? She's. Pink Pony Taylor.
I didn't watch, so I'm sorry. I'm not gonna help you on this one.
Another great performance. So there were a couple of great performances, but all in all, I mean, I was
meh.
Yeah, meh. Yeah.
So I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Anything else before we wrap up? Who's next week? We have somebody lined up for next week?
Actually, we don't.
This is your opportunity to be on the podcast.
No, I should actually thank you for that reminder. I should probably. I mean, I think we've discussed the fact that. But in December, we sat down, and within 10 minutes, we just generated a list of 50-some people that we think would be really, really great. So we have...
There's a lot more to come. Don't worry.
We have so many interesting people, so I'll just tap into one of them. Yeah.
Okay. One of them next week. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Talk to you again next time.